we're gonna get started. Okay, welcome. Tonight is the February meeting of the Hampton Bays Alliance. Thank you all for coming. Tonight we have a traffic mitigation program for you. We've got Tom Neely here and Michael Iasilli. First, I want to make a few announcements. We have a special election coming up for town council seat.
You dropped that white paper.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh, thank you. So we have a special election coming up for the seat that Tommy John Scaboni vacated on the town council for the town of Southampton. That election is going to be March 18th. There's also special early voting starting March 8th through March 16th. And there's also an absentee ballot provision. So if you need an absentee ballot, you can always get one and be able to vote that way as well. A couple of little announcements. Well, I will be running in that special election alongside Rick Martell. And we have a debate in front of the Hampton Bays Civic Association set for Monday, February 24th. That begins at 7 o'clock. And we also have a debate scheduled with the Hampton Bays Civic Association debates are usually held at the Hampton Bays Middle School. And I believe it's going to be there as well, although we'll wait to get a further announcement. Nancy's shaking her head. Okay, Hampton Bays Middle School. And then we have League of Women Voters debate is going to be on March 3rd. It is going to start at 7 o'clock and that will be on Zoom. It is going to be broadcast by CTV. So look for that coming up. Our next meeting of the Hampton Bays Alliance is going to be on March 5th at 7 o'clock here. The program for that meeting is going to be, there are going to be two speakers. One is going to be David Gilmartin from Greenberg Traurig. He is representing a client who is a developer that is planning on putting a small hotel where the Boardy Barn currently is, or what's now called the Barnyard. So he's reaching out to community groups in order to discuss the project, and he'll be here to tell us all about it. I don't know if he'll be showing us any diagrams or renderings and discussing its impact on the community and talking about what they're planning. We're also going to have Curtis Highsmith from the Housing Authority, who is going to be discussing an update with regard to the Eastern Motel property. And it looks as though that property is going to be solely senior housing. I believe that's what the town board has decided it should be, and he's going to talk to us about all the updates with regard to that. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Okay, so tonight, so for our traffic mitigation program, two things we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the road review committee, and we're going to be talking about the traffic mitigation and safety task force. Tonight with us, we have Tom Neely right here. Mr. Neely is with the planning board, and he is the designated representative of the planning board on the road review committee. And we're going to learn all about what the road review committee is, what it does, how it works. Mr. Neely is also the co-chair of the traffic mitigation and safety task force alongside Charlie McCardle, our highway superintendent. And Michael Iasilli is, well, you're not involved with road review, but you are involved with the traffic mitigation and safety task force, correct? Okay, and so Michael and we have Michael Iasilli, who's on our town council, also is going to be talking about these issues with us. So let's get started. Stephanie?
Okay, so what is the road review committee? What do you do?
The road review committee is established through the town code by the town board. It was established, I think, in 1979, something like that. The purpose is to determine what road improvements a property their property on a private road in the town, or a trustee road in the town. The road review committee is not involved with existing town roads, but only with private roads and trustee roads where somebody wants to build a house. So if someone wants to build a house, they have to make improvements to that private road to make it passable, essentially to make it passable for emergency services, but for use by whoever may need to travel on that road. So as an individual property comes in, and the applications go through our town engineer, Tom Hampton. He's the chair of the committee. I'm one appointee through the planning board. There's an appointee from the ZBA, who's also on the committee. The highway superintendent or his designee comes, and generally it's one of his foremen comes to represent the highway department. Somebody from the town attorney's office is also on it, and somebody from the building department, the chief building inspector, or likely one of the building inspectors that he appoints. And normally these folks come to every meeting, as I do, so you can be very familiar with the whole process and see the different applications as they come through. So what we do, an application comes in, goes to the town engineer. So as I said, somebody wants to build a house, or there's been a recent modification of the town law, which I think was a good one, where it's not just a new house, but houses that they're knocking down and greatly expanding now have to come in front of the road review committee.
Good.
That didn't used to have to happen. And as a member of the planning board and being on the road review committee, and I'm sure Michael would agree, and you folks have seen a lot of houses are getting knocked down and rebuilt, and they generally didn't have to come in and make any improvements to the road. So that part of the town code was changed a few months ago so that those folks also have to now come in. And the town engineer will take the application. Generally, we'll follow his recommendations, but it will be to ask the prospective homeowner, the applicant, to pave a certain amount of the road, to put in drainage when it's necessary, maybe trim trees if they're over the private road, so that, again, vehicles can pass. The amount that we ask a homeowner to do depends on the situation of that private road. Depends on where they're located on the road, depends on sometimes, the amount of improvements they're making. We kind of try to peg it to scale it to what's being done. So town engineer presents us a recommendation, asks the homeowner to pave 200 feet, go 18 feet wide, which is kind of a standard on a private road. Town standards are a little bit bigger than that, but again, these are private roads, not town roads. Quite often put in drainage. I think we all know that drainage every day is becoming more and more of an issue with flooding on the roads. So Tom will provide us with recommendations. We'll ask some questions. Why did you decide to do this, or why are we asking them to do that? And then generally we would go with the recommendations. So the homeowner has to make those improvements to the road before they can get a CO for their, the house they're building or the house that they are expanding. And eventually, the theory is, all those private lots go together, and now you have a pretty well-formed private road. And, at some point, again, a different process, Town Law 200, there may be an interest in the property owners on that road to bring it into the town road system. It stays a private road after we're done, but at some point, the property owners along that private road may want to come to the town to ask that it be brought into the town road system.
Could you explain a little bit about Town Law 200, what that actually means?
Sure. Town Law 200 is where a private road is in private ownership, and there are several different types of private ownership of the private roads. But in a typical example, every property owner would have a stake in the road in front of them, private road. to get in, Town Law 200 is the process by which you would want the town to take that road over so that it would become a town road and would no longer be private, no longer be a burden, if you will, to those private property owners. It would now be plowed by the town and resurfaced when necessary by the town, and if there's drainage, it would be, the drains would be cleaned by the town. And to some people it's important, it also then could be policed by the town. A private road is private property. Town police, we can't establish speed limits on private roads. Police really there aren't speed limits, there aren't traffic laws on private roads. So there's no real police enforcement on those roads. So for those various reasons, you may wanna have your private road brought into the town system. You apply again through the town highway department, through the town engineering department. The town engineer estimates the cost of bringing that road up to town standards. The homeowners agree to pay for those improvements to bring it up to town road standards. And then the town board is asked by resolution, once it's up to town road standards, the town engineer, the town highway superintendent both come and say, yes, you've now built it to town standards, certain thickness of asphalt, certain width, certain amount of drainage. You brought it up to town road standards. They will then come to the town board, and the town board will accept it into the town road system.
So let me ask you this, when you have someone coming before you on the road review committee, and if they're on a private road that is unpaved, which in Hampton Bays we have a bunch of those,
Right.
and let's say it's one homeowner wants to improve their property and are subject to road review, but the entire road is unpaved, what happens then? How does that work? Are you requiring them to pave or improve only their section, the entire road? Right, just one little section, like, I think it's a fair question.
Right,
What does it encompass?
It can vary, but it's generally, if you're, for example, on the corner lot or one lot in, you might be asked to pave from the corner, the intersection with the town road maybe, down to your property. Or you may be asked to pave 200 or 300 feet your property and 100 feet on each side or something like that. That's where I'd say the town engineer takes a look at the location, takes a look at the condition of the road, and then makes a recommendation to us as to what exactly we should ask them to do. It's generally, a couple of 100 feet of paving, put in some drainage where necessary, if there's already drainage, because the property next door got developed, so there's no need to put in more drainage. We may ask for more paving, or we may ask for something to be repaved or widened.
Are there any opportunities for other homeowners to get involved in order to, like, let's say, pave the entire street, or?
Well, that's
anything
where,
like that?
that's where Town Law 200 would come into effect. So, the theory is you start with kind of a private road. Sometimes they could be even called paper roads because they don't really exist, they're not paved yet. If you've got 10 lots on it, the theory is eventually those 10 lots are gonna get developed, and you will have then paved and put in drainage, done other improvements that cover the whole length of the road. And that's how it theoretically would work.
And if I could just add to that, with respect to Town Law 200, that cost is borne out of the immediate residents on that road. It's almost like the formation of a special taxing district that pays for it. It's not a cost that is shared by the entirety of the town. It's shared by just the residents of that immediate area. So it's an important distinction, because when you're dealing with a private road, the reason why Town Law 200 exists is so that if there's a private interest there, it's not borne out of all of the taxpayers of the town, which would be unfair because it's a private road. So it's just the immediate residents living on that private road.
And then would they shoulder the cost of putting in that road to town specifications for the town then to take it over?
Yes.
Yes, and to pick up on Michael's point, which is, a very good point, it's still private property, so the people that own that road are the ones that have to pay for the improvements. Say there's 20 houses on the street, and the improvements are $200,000, which is probably a typical range to bring a road up to town standards. It's not an inexpensive process. That would be $10,000 per home, and that would be assessed over 15 years on your tax bill. That's how the process works. When the estimate's developed by the town engineer, the tax assessor looks at the number of properties on the home, on the road, to, do the math. I should also say, to Michael's point, 51% of the property owners have to agree to improve that road. So again, if you have 20 homes, 11 of those property owners have to agree to improve it through the Town Law 200 process. All 20 will have to contribute. You get more than half the people to vote for it, everybody has to contribute.
So how would that work in terms of if there's, let's say, apartments? Let's say there's an apartment building on that private road. How does that work in terms of who pays and where does the cost?
I believe, I've never seen that situation, and actually several years ago, the town did a study of the private roads. We have about 100 miles of private roads in this town. I mean, we're Southampton, East Hampton, this is another area where the East End is fairly unique. You go farther west or you go to most communities, they've never heard of private roads. They don't know what that is, because they're all municipal. But I don't know, except I would say that the property owner rather than the tenants. Now, what might happen between the tenants and the property owner,
Right.
I don't know how that works.
And some of those roads are also, I just wanna mention, some of those roads that are, dirt roads and whatnot, that we think are private roads, are also, they could be trustee roads too, it's important to mention that.
Right. What is a trustee road?
It's a road that
Define
is,
that for the
a
audience.
road that's managed solely by the trustees.
Okay, and
There's
why, what situation would you have that in?
There's, I believe, 20 or 25 trustee roads in the town. And
Right.
throughout the town, right, and that goes back, I
Is
don't
that
know all
access to the
lore,
water?
But that was, right, for example, and I lived on, Widow Gavitt's Road up in Sag Harbor, was a trustee road. Because it goes by Long Pond and Round Pond and meanders on down, so I guess that's why it originally was a trustee road. And, I can tell you a little story, I learned this personally when I built my house on Widow Gavitt's Road, and the, then highway superintendent, a gentleman named Bill Masterson, some of you folks may remember Bill. I didn't know anything was working for the town, brand new out here, 1990 or something like that. Bill came to my street, and said, okay, he looked up and down and he said, okay, you're gonna have to pay 300 feet and it's gonna cost you $8,000 and you can't get a CO if you don't do it.
Bless you.
And I said, what, I want to appeal this, and he said, well, I'm the committee. And you're gonna lose your appeal. So that was my first introduction to private roads and trustee roads. But yes, they are included in that 100 miles of private roads that I mentioned.
Do you have any idea what people pay on average in order to do this kind of work?
I think it's probably, 15,000, 10,000 per household. It's,
Depending on your frontage.
How many cases do you get a year?
I was in the municipal works department, for a long time. I'm retired, so I'm not there every day like I used to be. But I think we were getting 2 or 3 applications a year. But
In Hampton Bays or the town?
townwide. Hampton Bays has a lot. There's a lot up in Flanders. There's a whole bunch up in North Sea. A few still in East Quogue, but Hampton Bays does have a significant amount. But I will say, once they went through the process and the homeowners saw what it was gonna cost, quite often they decided not to go forward with the project.
They're suddenly okay with the dirt road.
Exactly.
If anyone has a question, we have the comment cards, but we're just gonna, raise your hand if you have a question and we'll get
When
to
they
you.
first started this program, their roads were done in a patchwork type of improvement. You had blacktop, dirt, different thicknesses, different widths, different composition of materials, they quickly deteriorated. The homeowners never had to maintain them, and you had potholes. And I'll give you an example: Shore Road in Hampton Bays.
Yep.
It's a patchwork of
Yeah.
multi-level improvements, which isn't benefiting in many ways. But how do you prevent that from happening? If I do 300 feet, and the next neighbor's 2,000 feet away, he does 300 feet, and you have all that gap in between, because they're resting on sand, and the edges always break off over
Right.
time.
It's a good question. You know, we rely on Tom as the town engineer, but I think in those kind of situations, he will try to connect the sections.
That's
So
right.
you're here, and the other guy's over here. He's gonna try to have you do maybe from your house down that way, and have the other guy, his house down that way. Or there are situations where you may not do in front of your own house. You may have to go do, some dirt road down, not in front of your house, down farther down the road where nothing's been developed yet.
That's good.
Is your question on?
Do they plow trustee roads?
Trustee roads?
Yeah.
Try to.
I think that, that's been a matter, I think they try to, when there's, I believe, declared a state of emergency, I think it's more than 4 inches of snow. The highway superintendent, I believe, has the authority to plow any roads that, to get emergency vehicles, be able to fire trucks, ambulances, to be able to get in and out. That's kind of the underlying theory.
So that's the mission, really. That's
Yes.
the policy consideration is emergency vehicles and public safety.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I just thought it was nice that you said, excuse me, I thought it was nice that you said you put it in your tax bill, so it's tax deductible. It's a private road and yet it's tax deductible.
Right.
And I think it's very good that you can pay for that amount over 15 years. I mean, really, if you sit down and figure out, I know it's a big money, but 15 years is still. So I think it's a good law. I think they put a lot of good thought into it.
Yeah, I think so too, and, as Michael mentioned, it is considered a special improvement district. It's its own little special improvement district.
Just one clarification, you said if there's 4 inches, they plow trustee roads, do they plow private roads too?
It's an emergency.
I think we'd have to check what the current
Yes, they do.
regulations are, or guidelines are.
I've been very involved.
My daughter lives over there between Shore and Atlantic.
Because of
They don't plow. They don't.
Yeah, they don't, and I would say that the highway department is gonna make sure that the priority is the town roads first, that's always the goal.
I have another question over here.
If all the residents of a private road were in accordance with, their kids be allowed to ride 4-wheelers on the road? If it's considered a private road,
It's private property.
with it, I'm
The
just wondering.
question has come up, for example, speed limit regulations, parking regulations, which is an area I was involved in when I worked with the town. That's private property. So the town really wasn't in the position, I can't directly address the
I was
right
just
to
curious,
be on the,
Like if the
driving
kids are responsible,
four-wheelers.
would the police be chasing them up and down a private road?
That's we used to get down to people parking on private roads was an issue on a couple of roads near popular spots here in Hampton Bays.
They gave tickets.
We couldn't put up no parking, but the police could technically get them for trespassing, cause it was private property. Or, I shouldn't say the police, private property, that may be a civil dispute, I'm not sure. But it's private property, it's not town property, so it couldn't be town regulated.
Okay.
Hi, quick question, I'm confused that the trustees don't have to bring their roads up to what's considered the benchmark?
There have been efforts, right, there have been efforts, and the trustees are now, there's been a new agreement struck between the trustees and the town, and some of those things have to be worked out budgetarily. And I would argue that, the trustees are looking at figuring out, how they can work with the town to bring them up to better standards.
Okay, and then another issue, if the roads aren't up to standards, what about the role of whether it's fire truck, ambulance, can they actually
actually not go, do they have to go in it's a private road, and if they do, can they say it's too dangerous or something like that?
You mean the fire,
Fire department or ambulance, if
you
they.
know, that has come up in the past when we were doing our work, study on private roads.
Mhm.
And that's how I got that number of 100 miles of private roads. That was one of the approaches, was to go, because the town was looking to try to find a way to financially help bring those into the town road system.
Mhm.
There were issues with it, which I don't want to digress on right now.
It's budgetary.
Well, and actually, we received a determination that those roads would have to be declared blighted. And then there was a question of, well, do people wanna live on a road that the town has declared blighted? But that was to get urban renewal approval to fund it, long story, so, I forget exactly where we were going with that one.
Well, I was saying the role of I was saying the role of the fire department or
Oh.
the ambulance and if the roads are really subpar.
We were told that the fire department will never say they can't get to a fire.
Okay.
That, that their attitude is, if there's a fire, they're gonna get there.
Yeah.
They got brush
So-
trucks.
And the ambulance?
Ambulance, I have a feeling it's pretty much the same.
The ambulance, maybe not, no.
I know.
Okay, I have a question over here.
I can answer for the ambulance, not legally probably, but my husband's been driving an ambulance for Hampton Bays for 25 years. And if there's a call on Katina Road, which is off Warner, they cannot go down Warner to get to that ambulance call, down Warner to Katina. They can't get on to Katina Road from Warner. They can only get on to Katina Road from Gravel Hill.
So they find a way.
Because the potholes, so if you live one or two houses from Warner Road, the ambulance has to go all the way to Gravel Hill to get you.
Precious time.
Precious time, it's treacherous.
And again, it's my understanding that at the discretion of the highway superintendent, if a private road is deteriorated to such a condition that it's absolutely impossible, they can come in and scrape the road.
They do come in and
Not-
scrape that part of the road
Right.
because it is so bad, but just the drainage underneath it, it just, within days, there's a 2-foot potholes in it.
Right.
So, and the ambulance can't get there,
And that's
so it's
one of the
something to
reasons the town was
consider.
trying to address this problem, was the fact that, we have so many private roads. Some are in great shape, but a lot are not in good shape.
Yeah, they can get to it from Gravel Hill, but sometimes 3 minutes is a life and death situation.
Right.
So how did the private roads come to be? Because you said it's very unique out here. We have a lot more than other places. As everyone kind of knows, there's a lot of decrepit, falling apart roads. So how did this come to be? And why is it still around?
I'm not an expert on it, but, having worked on this project where we looked at them, understanding Hampton Bays and North Sea and some of the places where there tend to be more of these than others, again, you folks know this, Hampton Bays, great deal of it started out as a summer colony. So there were little cottages and people just coming out here for a couple of months a year in the summer.
It was nice having a private road.
Right, there wasn't year-round population, these were small cottages, it's the same, North Sea has a lot of the same situation. There was no real need to, improve them, because they were just part-time, they were small. Eventually more people moved out here, houses, were redeveloped on some of these roads into year-round houses, when they used to just be little cabins for the summer. And I think it was, an evolutionary process.
So Jean had a question. What happens if a homeowner commits to making these improvements, has this tax burden for the next 15 years, and then they sell the property? And in less than 15 years, does that tax burden run with the land?
It goes with them, yeah.
Okay,
That goes with the new owner, right?
exactly, okay.
I'm thinking of a specific road in Hampton Bays called Shore Road, if you
I know it well, not
Okay,
as well as you
it's-
maybe, but.
It's a major thoroughfare, really, from Indiana to Springville, and potholes deep. When does the town do something? I mean, going through that is like going through a obstacle course.
Well, going back to town law 200 and to road review, one of the aspects of road review that I believe is still current, but I haven't looked at the regulations in a long time. When you go through road review and, do whatever you have to do to get your CO, build your house, you automatically agree to the town law 200 provision. So once you get to more than 50% of those homes on that street having gone through road review, theoretically, that road would now qualify or be required, perhaps, to be improved to town road standards. But the process of town law 200 has to start with a resident or a homeowner or property owner on that road. The town cannot start town law 200. We can't initiate
Yeah.
the process. It has to be a property owner.
I'm not talking about town law 200, you just said that if a road is bad enough, the highway department will step in and do something about it.
I said my understanding is they will scrape a dirt road to try to make it passable. But that's, I believe, they're up their discretion. It's not filling potholes, it's not repaving the road, it's minimally passable for emergency service vehicles.
Just a I think somebody,
At the motel is.
at times, I think they're even allowed to order the people to fix the road, aren't they? If it's really, really bad.
Not the town.
No.
No. Now, there are homeowners associations. I mean, the legal status of private roads, one of the things we learned is there are a whole host of legal statuses, that's a word, for private roads. Some are owned by everybody up to the middle of the road. Some are owned by the original subdivision developer and are deeded to the town, and the town may or may not have accepted the deed. I mean, there are some where I've seen, the subdivision developer deeded it to the town never accepted it, and the developer went bankrupt. So there's all kinds of legal aspects you have to look at when you look at these private roads. And that, again, that falls on the property owners, does not fall on the town.
Have there been any efforts to centralize this Michael, do you know of any historical efforts for the town to take over these, the paving of these private roads, to make them standardized?
Well, yeah, I mean, we in fact, Tom and I have talked a lot about this. There have been previous efforts, Tom alluded it to before to everybody, but there are a number of different questions and concerns, and I think Town Law 200 in particular is what really gets in the way, because of the fact that any improvement to a private road requires that the immediate residents are the ones that, again, bear the cost. That would have to sort of be altered in some way. We'd have to find a way around it, and I think that presents legal questions. And again, the entirety of the town would have to shoulder that massive cost to upgrading. I think it's certainly in the interest of us, all of us, to really consider what we could do to address the issue. And I don't know if you want to elaborate more on the historical efforts. I know that you've been involved in some of those discussions.
Right, we spent a lot of time, I would say somewhere around 2017 or something like that. We hired an engineering firm to help us, assess the problem, help us look at these. We actually kind of tried to start to prioritize roads, because threw the number $200,000 out there. I'll throw that out there again. If it costs $200,000 to improve a half a mile of a private road, you know, and you have 100 miles of private roads in the town, you know, how much are you gonna spend every year? How are you gonna decide who's first, who's second, who's third, who's fourth? We did some prioritization. We looked at, you know, lengths of roads. We looked at numbers of developed properties on roads. We looked, does it connect to a county road? Does it connect to another town road? We tried to come up with criteria. You know, we had a working priority list. But even if the town were to say, we're gonna commit $1 million a year, that's, you know, 2 miles of roads or whatever a year, and you have 100 miles of roads to do.
Are there any alternate funding sources, grants, federal, state, county, anything that would possibly ameliorate the financial burden?
We couldn't find anything, and as I said, part of what we also ran into, and we were going to try the one opening that we saw where the town could do this, because again, this is private property, and now you're taking taxpayer money to improve somebody's street, you know, and towns aren't supposed to spend money on private property. The one aspect that we found was possibly urban renewal grants, or not, I should say urban renewal grants, although maybe grants are involved, I don't remember, but urban renewal process like they use in, you know, an urban city, an urban environment that's, you know, terribly deteriorated, you know? But we were told we would have to declare either the whole area or at least the roads in that area blighted. And there was, you know, some pushback to the idea of, you know, you're gonna declare my road or my neighborhood blighted.
What exactly does that mean, blighted? To the extent you can define
You're in real estate, you tell me.
No, I don't wanna assume that everybody knows what it means, you know, there may be some of us who aren't sure.
I don't mean to be smart,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, blighted means bad condition.
Unlivable.
Right, but what is the legal consequence that's attached to that, to the
You know,
extent you know it?
And, you know, again, this was just sitting around and discussing the pros and cons of trying to pursue this was, do you wanna live on a street, and if you're trying to, you know, sell your house, do you wanna live on a street that's been declared blighted? Or do you wanna live in a neighborhood? And we never got, there was some, again, legal disagreement about whether you could just say the streets were blighted, or whether you had to say the area was blighted.
And I would just say, just add on is that there's also an economic consideration too, you know, amongst the homeowners, you know, they're thinking about the real estate value of their properties. And to have that associated with their property could carry some long-term financial implications for them down the road if they're looking to sell. So I think that, you know, remember with respect to upgrading private roads, you have to get your neighborhood at least more than half an agreement. So that's a lot of work. There's a lot of individual efforts that need to take place to broker that consensus amongst your neighbors, and then you have to, you know, get that financial commitment from everybody. And so I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot more than just the town saying we're going to do this. You know, you have to get a lot of people on board. Sorry.
Well, what is the?
I have a question here.
Oh, sure.
My question is, the bonding that used to occur, I don't know if it still does, when you don't do your apron on your driveway and you don't put that roadway in. Do you know how many bonds are outstanding right now within the town for road improvements on private road, from renovations, building?
Well, you're not supposed to get your CO until that's all satisfied. Until, you know, the town engineer comes out and says, you did it all, you're done. If there's a bond involved, you know, you can get a refund, you know, you get your bond back. I don't know how many there would be, but it will only be somebody that went through the process of, you know, getting the estimates and getting, you know, agreeing to do it, building the house, but then not coming back in for a CO.
Yeah, I see a lot of houses that are new and then don't have their apron, don't have the pavement in front, there's no attaching pavement. I was just wondering if any of that bonding money is the town able to shift that money to other roads? There's a road, across from my road, which is Ocean Road, and I know there's some people here that are on that road. They did a beautiful job doing some paving on their own on the road.
Right.
Is there a way for them to access that money to improve the last 25–30% of the road that they have, where you shift it from someone that didn't do the work to that road?
You know, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding when we, ask for, I think it's called a performance bond that you're talking
Right.
about, somebody's, whether it's the paving or the landscaping, whatever it is, that's an agreement between the town and that property owner. I don't think the town has the authority to take that money and use it somewhere else. I think they just hold it until it finally gets settled, but again,
So
I
they
don't-
could hold a bond in perpetuity and just keep it and not do anything with the money, or
Right.
not try to.
Yeah, it seems like it's held in trust, so you can't really do anything else with it. It's probably held in a separate bank account, and it's held for the purpose of ensuring performance. Right. One last question, and then I wanna move on to, traffic and safety, but, we'll get to you, but I have one more. What do you see in your experience as a real barrier to getting people on your street to get together and pave the road? Is it just financial? Are you seeing any other issues?
I think it's 95% financial. I mean, I have heard, but it's been a long time that, we don't want the town controlling our road. We don't want, to open it up, to other people because it becomes a public road. Now, Shore Road is in essence a public road, even though it's a private road. It's used, that way. But I think it's, 95% financial. I remember meeting with some people, and long story short, I think the assessment was gonna be something like $500 a year. And a whole bunch of homeowners just didn't wanna spend the $500 a year. So, if you're talking, they said if it's 10 or 15 or 20,000, if it's 1,000 or 1,500 a year, I think there's a lot of people that, have serious problems with that.
Absolutely.
Are people's taxes lower on a private road than if you, had a paved road in front of your house?
I believe if you go into the assessor's office, they will make an adjustment. I don't think it's automatic.
But is it lower though, than the?
It is lowered, I believe, marginally, maybe a couple of $100, something like that.
Well, the people who live on the private roads, if they have a pothole, why don't they make the initiative, like, and buy recycled stone or buy a truckload and just all agree and just dump it on there? That would create a strong base and you wouldn't have potholes.
Well, my in-laws were on a private road. They had an informal homeowners association, and, whatever the number, 20 homes or 30 homes, everybody but 2 people would kick in to repave the road every year. So those 2 people got a free ride, cause the other, 18 decided to bite the bullet, and those 2 would never belly up. In those kind of situations, whether it's a formal or informal agreement, the homeowners quite often decide, hey, we're better off just doing a little paving every year amongst ourselves, rather than going through the whole town law 200 process.
Yeah, I have a question right here.
I live in a private community, Old Harbor Colony. We have private roads. We did get they were taxing us. We appealed it, and they no longer tax us for our roads because we take care of them ourselves.
Right.
Some of the people, especially new ones as they move in, want it turned over to the town, wanted to know why we didn't turn it over to town. The cost of bringing it up to your standards, particularly the drains and everything, which we take care of ourselves. But we also have a private beach, and it was our understanding that if they were town roads, anybody could come in and use our private beach, so we chose not to turn them over to the town.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about you're a good example, there are private developments.
Yep.
And those are all private roads.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, just one more question. What incentive does someone who lives on a private road have to have the town take it over?
treated, it's treated, you get the services that every other town road has, you know, that it's repaved, it's on a schedule, you have, you know, when it snows, they'll plow it.
Police enforcement,
It
parking
seems-
regulations if you need
Yeah,
them.
but it seems to me that the private roads are doing, I mean, forget Shore Road, but basically, there's really no incentive for them to do that. It's more expensive to make it a town road than for them to keep it private.
I would, this is just based, and this is very anecdotal, so don't take what I'm saying as this is data-driven, scientific. It's really just based on my conversations that I've had with people, you know, talking to them, where they live. I think it's a mixed bag. You have some people who like it, you know, they like the fact that they have a private road. There are other people who are like, they can't stand it, the potholes are insane, and they wish they could do something about it, because they don't wanna pay to restore all of it, they want the town to bear the cost. So there's just I think it's just a mixed bag of different viewpoints of people who live on these roads, quite frankly.
Okay.
This last.
Okay, this is literally the last one, cause we gotta move on, it's already 5 of.
People aren't thinking about it, it costs a lot of money to keep your car up if you're running it over roads like that, alignment, tires and all that, so, I mean, if you're not paying for the road, you're paying for a new car every once in a while.
Okay, it is 5 of 8, so let's move on to traffic mitigation and safety task force. I got that right. Okay. Who's gonna start off on that?
I'll start.
Okay, so,
Tom,
Michael.
a round of applause for Tom, come on.
Hey.
Okay, so, what is the traffic mitigation and safety task force?
Thank you, John.
That was my big question.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know some of you, I've seen you around in the community. I know you all care about Hampton Bays very much, so I just want to say thanks for being here. Part of my hair is a bad hair day today. I couldn't it's growing too long. But you know, I wanted to you know, when John said, you know, I want you to come and talk about the task force, I wanted to come and talk to you why we established it. And one of the reasons why, obviously, is because we do have a traffic crisis in the town of Southampton. And you know, I heard a lot of people throughout my time before I came into office, so how are you gonna solve it? You're not gonna do anything. But you know, I was actually very inspired. I was inspired by Tom, number one, because Tom has been the traffic and safety coordinator for the town of Southampton for many years. He's worked in the town of Southampton as well, and doing a number of road and highway and traffic initiatives. But I was also greatly inspired too by our highway superintendent, Charlie McCardle, who has just done so much in terms of throwing so many different things at our roads to try to see how we can make it better for people who are commuting to and fro. You know, and I would point specifically to the yellow light program, the cone program. Canoe Place Road is a great example of what Charlie has been able to do. And you know, it just represented somebody taking initiative and trying something new to try to solve this issue. Because I've talked to so many people, in particular senior citizens, who are very scared in the summertime when they have to go to a doctor's appointment, they have to go to the hospital, and you know, the roads are jammed up, especially you know, when you're on County Road 39. And I know that might not necessarily affect all of us here, but it's creating a domino effect of traffic issues throughout the entire town. So I was aware too that the town had previously embarked on other initiatives, committees. They've established committees. They've established a task force. I think there was something that was traffic task force. They took my name before I created it. But one of the things that I thought we could do differently was really involve and engage the public. And Tom, you can attest to this. That had not really been done at the town level. We had not thought about how can we address some of the traffic issues in the town while engaging with the general public. Because we could sit in town hall all day thinking, well, this is an issue and this is an issue. But we really should be hearing from you. We should be hearing from people about what they're experiencing where they live. So to bring sort of the issue down right to you, directly to you. So we had a total of 6 meetings. We started it in April of last year. we had our first meeting, and then we had 6 subsequent meetings, and they were very informative. They brought people out to discuss what they've been experiencing. We brought some really important players to the table. We brought the chief of police. The chief of police has been such an incredible partner to the task force and to the town board. And we also had the DPW commissioner in Suffolk County, Charlie Bartha, who was appointed by County Executive Ed Romaine to our task force. He was his designee. We had legislator Welker. We had some members of the EMS, fire with us as well, business community, and we had the Supervisor Moore was on the task force as well with us. And we really evaluated a lot of things. We took a list, an inventory of all the roads of note that came to us, whether it was a constituent email or it was people who came to the task force meetings and spoke at the podium. We actually designated at least a half an hour, 40 minutes for a public portion, so people can actually come and speak to the task force, which again hadn't been done in the past. And one of the major observations from this was there is both long-term and short-term goals that we should be trying to establish. And the short-term examples had really most to do with speeding. Because you have a lot of bottleneck areas developing in the town, you have a lot of people going down side streets and speeding like crazy. So one example of some of the work we did in the task force, we had a lot of folks in Hampton Bays telling us about Wakeman. And we actually went in June of 24 with the Superintendent McCardle Highway, Chief Kiernan. We took a look, we did a site visit, and we ended up putting a speed monitor there near the school, in particular where people had most of the concern, to try to slow down speed. The speed monitor that we put up there simply starts to flash a strobe light when you're going above the speed limit. And the idea there is that it attempts to change driving behavior. Does it work on every driver? No. But does it work for a lot of drivers? It does. When you start seeing that flash, you're like, whoa, I don't know what that was. Did they take my picture or something? So it's just an attempt at behavioral change when you're driving. And we did that in a lot of different places in the town where speeding was an issue. So that's one short-term goal that we were working on. We've procured a lot of speed monitors. Last year, I think we procured 7 of them. And I think we're going to be getting more this year. One of the things that I actually recognized was in the village of Sag Harbor. They had these nice speed monitors that flash blue and red like it's a police car. And they also say thank you when you're driving at the speed that you're supposed to be driving at. So as to kind of reinforce positive driving behavior. We are looking to actually invest in a couple of those, probably not many because they are a little expensive, but just so we can have them in places where we think that it's appropriate, we'll try and deploy them. One of the beautiful things about the ones that we have right now, the ones that we've been deploying, like on Wakeman, they're movable. So right now they look pretty fixed in the ground, but we could actually take them out, we can put them in other places. So it's actually very nice in terms of trying to cycle through them. Did you?
So let me ask you this. Is there any way to collect any data to find out whether or not they're actually working?
Yeah, so yes, the short answer is yes. All the speed monitors that we have deployed, which I want to thank the Highway Department, in particular Deputy Superintendent Mark Brager, who's been really just on the ground. Whenever we have a need for a site visit, he goes and he installs them. Yes, they do collect data. Sometimes you might see them not operational, and there's a reason for that, because when they're working, you're more likely to go the speed limit. But when you see it off, you might ignore it. So the idea is to try to get natural reads on the drivers and their speeds.
So we're being surveilled.
Your speed is being recorded. Surveilled is not the correct term. Yeah.
I call that surveillance. Okay, interesting.
I'll just jump in on that. The other advantage, or one of the advantages of having not only the flashing but the data recording, is you can identify the peak speeding times. And, you know, as they used to say, you know, you fish where the fish are. If you look at that data, you can then say to the police, hey, the real problem is, you know, Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock going north or south or east or west. You can help them target their effort. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than having a police officer sit on a road for an hour and a half, or whatever it might be, and write one ticket. You know, you want them out there to, you know, let them write 10 tickets in an hour and a half. So having that data recorded and then reviewed with the police department helps them zero in on good time to be there.
And I
Have
just
we
wanna-
done that yet? Have we started providing that data to the police? so
They have
that
access,
can-
they have access to it.
And,
Okay.
right, and it was, when I was still working with the town, that that started up in Hampton as part of our traffic safety program up there a few years ago. And that data was being reported back to the police. And you know, it was interesting, because I used to look at it, it wasn't always the times you thought, or it wasn't always the direction you thought. And, you know, so it's very enlightening to be able to look at that, that data.
I want to actually add on to that, you know, sometimes we'll get a request, and they'll say, you need to lower the speed limit on my road because they're going too fast. Those speed monitors are helpful to help us make a determination on whether or not that step, lowering the speed limit, is necessary or the right next step. Because oftentimes we think people are speeding, sometimes we're wrong. A lot of the times what we found is that when people think there's a lot of speeding cars, it actually has to do with volume. In particular, we see that a lot on Noyak Road. It is a long stretch of road, and I'm sure there are places where people are going well above the speed limit, but the majority of what our data has collected shows that people are driving, you know, they may be a little bit above. I think it's like maybe like 5 miles above the required miles per hour. But, you know, it doesn't rise to the occasion of putting a stop sign or lowering the speed limit to that degree. So
Who makes those determinations to lower the speed limit, and
Our
how
engineer.
does that play out?
Our engineer, so when the request comes in, you know, either we'll have our town engineer work on establishing the study. And it's not really an official study where we're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to have a contractor do a whole evaluation. It's just we deploy a monitor, we collect information for a few months, and we make the determination that way. And it either we can do that request through you know the council office, or it could go directly through highway or the engineer.
And then who makes the who makes the final decision? Who implements it?
Yeah. So
Is that the traffic mitigation task force?
Well, don't give us too much authority we don't have like that much. It's not like we don't decide anything. The traffic task force was primarily set up to make recommendations. And I just want to say, like, a task force it's not perennial. You know, you have a lot of committees and task forces, and I think a lot of them outlived their shelf life in the town, quite frankly. It's no slight to some of these task forces and committees, but a task force is tasked with doing something and coming up with some kind of product to take action. And so the task force is in the process, actually, currently, of creating a final report. And that report is going to be delivered and presented to the town board, and will course over what the primary recommendations of the task force, people who sat on that board, made. Now, I do think that there are some long-term implementation initiatives that can happen from the task force. And one of those things which will be provided in the recommendations in this report is that the departments of public safety, highway, the police chief, who am I missing, town engineer, are going to meet periodically throughout the year to evaluate the community's traffic-related concerns, to see what can be done. One of the things that I've recognized in town government, we need to try to get all of the departments thinking about what steps are to be taken next. And if we can have scheduled quarterly meetings where we're evaluating those questions and those concerns, we could start taking action more thoroughly on them.
Let's go to Maria.
All right, I just have a question on the signs that you put up for, you know, your speed or the speed limit is. There's one by the middle school on Ponquag Avenue that I always assumed was run by the school, that they turned it on and off. So what you're saying is that you, in effect, or the highway department, turns that on and off, which makes a lot more sense to me, because it was running on days that the school was not open.
Those were put in, actually, when I was still working for the town. That was a nice, thank you for mentioning that one. The PTA and the town shared in the expense of those speed display units by the school. They came to the town and said, you know, we'd like to work on something like this. So the town and the PTA did that together. It was installed, you know, professionally, of course. The town does control those hours, like school zone hours. The blinking and messaging is only supposed to be during school hours.
But it's not.
That-
It's way not.
It's supposed to be.
It's way
The ones
not.
on the school.
Trust me, I'll be down.
The ones in front of, the ones at the
times
school zone are supposed to operate on school hours. Now, there's a little flexibility on that, but
They don't.
that's one
Ask
where
anyone that lives
we-
here, they operate on
the
weekends.
town does have
But you don't
a,
know when kids
that-
are having programs going on either at the school, so you have to give them.
No, they operate at times when the
it's
school is
generally
closed.
considered 7 AM to
6 p.m.
4 or 6 PM. Usually, everybody agrees on 6 PM instead.
When the school is open.
I bet it's on right now.
Off in the summer, unless they're doing summer school. But that is managed through our town engineer, but there's a subcontractor or a contractor that actually goes out and makes those adjustments, so we can certainly convey that.
Email me if there's an issue, we'll take a look at it.
I personally, I don't, it doesn't bother me.
You speed, I know you do, right?
We have a question over, we have a question over here.
Well,
It's just, I was curious, cause you said you modulated the times, and there's no logic to when that goes on and off, in my book.
you know, all electronic equipment does go on the
But
fritz
I think
every
it's
now and
important to
then,
make a
so-
distinction, however, that there are town-operated speed monitors and the ones that are being operated by the school, is that correct?
No, those are under the town's.
So the towns are supposed to be operating, the town's supposed to be operating them?
We're responsible for the maintenance, or at least when I was there. We will have to check whether the hours are controlled I know at the Tuckahoe School, the hours were controlled remotely. We will have to check the
Okay.
Okay, they'll check for you. I have a question right over here.
In some states, I've noticed stop signs that are surrounded by blinking LED lights. They're very visible in all kinds of weather. And I think in some areas, they do make you stop, because you come up upon it and it's flashing at you.
Yeah. The town highway department is looking at that, and they've actually installed a couple throughout the town. They want to see how they work first before they start investing in more. I am a supporter of them though.
Okay.
Okay, I have
Speaking
one
of
more.
speeding, real quick, what's happening on 39
Yeah,
with,
I'm glad you brought that up. There's an article in 27 East today. Here's what's happening. The chief of police is ramping up efforts to enforce speeding cars. That's honestly the reality. We were able to hire 4 additional police officers, which is badly needed. We are getting a lot of questions and concerns from the public, with respect to how can you better enforce my road? There's so many cars coming down it, doing, parking illegally, X, Y, and Z, not following the rules of the road. So the chief is going to be dedicating a number of the new officers that we've obtained to a real traffic enforcement campaign, especially leaping into the spring of this year, to start dealing with it. And on County Road 39, we're really, as you know, the county, it's a county road. The county is doing a study of the road. They're going to come up with some sort of plan, long-term effort to deal with the traffic issue there. But in the interim, we really have to think about what we're going to do, because whatever the county does, it's 10 years down the road. It's maybe even longer, honestly. And we're going to have to get community consensus over whatever the county ends up deciding they want to do. So it's going to take a long time. So we have to think about interim solutions to dealing with the traffic safety issues that County Road 39 faces. In particular, businesses are afraid of their workers and customers coming in and out of those places. Likewise, you know, in the summertime, you all see how it gets with the congestion and people just driving erratically. After the rush hour, people are speeding like crazy. You know, you have residents that live in and around County Road 39 when they're looking to exit their roads. They're afraid to make a left or make a right. So how do we actually contend with that? We added a speed monitor there. It's not gonna heal everything. It's not gonna fix everything. But the police chief and I and the task force actually evaluated speed cameras as a potential solution to some of this. We want to see how we could do this without issuing citations. Maybe there's a way that the cameras can simply record speeders and send a letter to notify them that you've been caught speeding, and we require you to follow the rules of the road. And it could also help the department identify areas in which we are seeing these cars speeding, and we can position officers at various locations to start picking up radar and try to catch some of the violators. So there's a number of different things, and I just want to say that this, with respect to the speed cameras, we're looking at it. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we are evaluating it. I think it's something that has to happen, and in particular, the people that have businesses on 39 and the people who live around County Road 39 are in particular the ones who are clamoring for it. Because they believe that it's very dangerous. So we have to try to address some of those concerns the best that we can.
Thank you, Michael. I have a question here.
Yes, I'm very appreciative of this discussion, and I wondered if there was a way in which there could be some consolidated reporting where the community here is providing all kinds of examples, all kinds of intersections. How do we know where to send information or observations? Is it a possibility to include a photograph, not if you're the driver, so that, as a passenger in a car, so that you can collect data in the anecdotal way that you can work with, because I'm sitting here and I'm writing down names and I can look up your email, but
no, it's a great question, and it's something that the task force was looking at as a way to kind of interface with the public. How best, when it's traffic related, how does the public appropriately interface with the town to take action on some of these issues? And one of the things that we did is we created an email called just essentially traffic@southamptontownny.gov, and you send that email to that address. And that's when I mentioned all the department heads are gonna meet periodically throughout the year. They will review those submissions to see what can be done.
I think that's very important for people to feel as if they have a way in which to report. And I'm also interested in collision, injury, property damage with respect to where you are putting these electronic speed signs, which do have the technology to ticket. People are opposed to even red light camera ticketing, so the opposition and the discussion on that is complicated. But I'm not hearing about collecting the incident data.
So the incidents are I think collected by the police, and I just want to mention the speed monitors that we have procured I don't believe they have camera technology, the ones that we have procured.
No.
That would be a separate technology.
Right.
So I just want to make that very clear. With respect to crashes and accidents, that is handled primarily through the police department.
Right, the police department,
I'm asking a question about how those two databases can intersect, because simply collecting the data on speeding without tying it to the proclivity for incident, helps you direct your enforcement resources.
The highway department often does coordinate with the police department. So we do have currently we have a graph of all the different speed monitors that we've deployed since April. I sent that to you the other day. Again, thank you to the highway department. And based on where those are, we can line that up, augment with data from the police department to see if there's some sort of overlay of that sort of just communicate that there is an issue here.
you've touched on a good thing with mentioning the crashes. And Michael's talked a lot about, what's been happening with getting the speed monitors out and other steps, but one of the goals I think we're gonna end up with our task force is create what's called a local safety action plan, LSAP. That's encouraged by federal and state governments to really pull together, coordinate, look at a lot of information, not only for our own benefit, but that would make us eligible to apply for traffic safety grants. And the 2 or 3 things you look at are crashes, tickets, volume, those all go, and you kind of want to overlay them. We just pulled, or asked the police pool force traffic accident crash, call them crashes, because accident implies they could be avoided. And traffic engineers will tell you that about 95% of accidents could be avoided if one driver, or whoever the driver was, was doing the right thing. So we call them crashes. I think there was something like 2,500 in the town last year. I don't have the number. We put it into our report, but I don't have my copy of the report with me. I don't have it memorized. But then you can drill down and you can start to say, where are the high accident locations? And start to overlay crash locations with tickets, with traffic volume, bends in the road, and that's where you can really start to get, really smart about exactly what you're doing. And whether it's issuing tickets, or whether it's putting the monitor in the right place, or rotating them between 3 or 4 good places.
I'm just going to inform this small group here and mention to you that the federal funding for Road to Zero, Vision Zero of 0 deaths a year. The groups that are advocating for that and are the activists for it have received cease and desist letters about the federal funding, and they're really pausing on some of the initiatives that counted on those budgets. So I think that the local home rule notion of wanting safety in your community is going to have to come from our voices here. So thank you.
That's a good point.
Thank you. We have a question right over there.
Yeah, this isn't as serious as some of the things you're talking about, crashes and stuff, but when we see the monitors, I think they are, that tabulate how much traffic is going by, or at what speed, right through the tires, sometimes, I think last year we saw them in a few different places on the same road. Sometimes we think, oh, traffic lights coming through or something. So can you explain how those are used, just for our own curiosity? And then also, you had asked about sharing information with the task force, but how visible is the task force's work? Like, can we go and see the different studies that you're trying to do, and then what the end result was of those monitors, perhaps?
So can I answer the latter question first? So we had the 6 meetings. Each of those meetings did have a public portion to it. We have all of our minutes and all of the videos from those meetings. They are posted online. You can watch them. In terms of what we produce, yes, it will be accessible for the public. The final report is what essentially will be the culmination of all of our work and our recommendations that we are already actively starting to implement. A lot of what you are hearing from the police chief is due to a lot of the work that we have coursed over in the task force itself. The abundance that you're seeing of speed monitors is also a result of the task force, and you'll see all of that illustrated in the report. And we'll Tom Neely in particular is taking a real active role in constructing this final report, and you'll see what has begun to be implemented and what still needs to be implemented. And we're going to talk a little, I hope we still have time to talk about more of those long-term solutions, because we do have to talk about infrastructure at some point to really deal with the longer-term issues of traffic congestion in particular, and safety in Southampton and Hampton Bays. But I want to also mention one other thing, another recommendation that's going to be coming out of this final report from the task force is also PSAs. You're going to start seeing public service announcements going out on social media from the town of Southampton and the police chief. You're going to see it on CTV. So we're working also, that's part of the 3 E's that might actually intersect a little bit with Vision Zero, with trying to educate people on the rules of the road. We have ways of, if you're on social media and you're in our community, even if you don't live here, if you're scrolling, you'll see our video. So we have ways of doing it. We're gonna take a much more active role of starting those PSAs in the new year. So
Wonderful. Here we have a question.
Wait.
There's probably 3 ways that you would see those. One, there could be a local development being proposed, and the planning board has required that they do a traffic study. We do that, fairly frequently with developments, and there's 2 or 3, 4 going on, within a couple of miles of here right now. Or it could be the part of the county study, even though it was the County Road 39 corridor study, they actually were taking measurements on a lot of other roads since like last summer. So you may have been that, all the way Noyak Road, and they were doing, Canoe Place Road. They were all over town, even though so much bigger than County Road 39. The third is that the Department of Transportation actually puts those out on a number of roads every year, all throughout the town, all throughout the whole state, all throughout the country. They do several roads every year in the town, so and they compile that data, and in fact, you can go on DOT website and look at traffic volumes on just almost every street in the town. Some of it might be old, but so those are like your 3 possible sources.
and I just want to say Tom does that for fun. He actually does that for fun.
Okay, question right here.
Just an observation. Every time I go on County Road 39, I've never seen a police car on County Road 39.
That's changing. That's changing now.
On my way over tonight, this is like a setup, you have to call the chief. On my way over tonight, I saw a car pulled over, getting a ticket. So
Well,
it's
that's
happening.
amazing.
If definitely read the article that just came out today. It's starting. We are more aggressively enforcing County Road 39. It's not. You know why it's not easy? Because there's no shoulder.
I was
So-
just gonna say, there's no place to pull anybody over.
Right.
And every driver knows that. So there's just no way for the traffic to accommodate a police car.
Right, that's a problem. So generally, in the past at least, they've been in one end of the road or the other. I mean, tonight, I saw one right by the college, but it was half off the road and the police car was half off the road.
I saw that too. I saw that.
So, that's a safety problem. That's one of the things that makes it.
So we have a couple more questions, and then we have a limited time, and I wanna move on to other things other than speeding that the task force has been using. So we've got a question here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I live on Old Squire Town Road, and my road is about as wide as from me to you. Many years ago, people, going up and down pretty fast, my neighbor complained they put a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign up. And their excuse is, well, that's the town speed. How would you go about reducing the speed on my road? Because I can't even give people a finger for speeding because they probably are going the speed limit. But it just feels so fast, because it's not a normal road.
So, do you have a speed monitor on your road?
No.
So we should try that out and see if it works.
No, I'm just wondering,
So
can you reduce it without having a study and everything?
30
Can
is
you reduce the speed limit and change the sign?
30 is the default speed limit for all towns in New York State.
No, I understand.
So they're automatically 30, and you'll see many that are higher, but the automatic lowest speed limit set in the town is 30. Last year, the state legislature passed a law that you can lower them to 25 for a whole area. You can't just do one street, you could do a whole area. But again, there has to be engineering study to support it, and you can go as low as 25, but it always was 30.
But I'm happy to work with you if you want to. I'll give you my card. You can email me, and we can maybe get a speed monitor on your street.
All right,
Okay, great.
I'm just wondering, because it is a narrow street.
Okay, we have a question right here.
This will affect all of us. They're going to replace the bridge on Montauk Highway by, no, not Canoe Place Road, Gravel Hill Road. And how are you going to propose a game plan for the trade parade, fire department, which I'm in, emergency vehicles, general traffic, you have the high school there, and how will the town be notified on a daily basis? Because they're all gonna be detoured to the side roads.
I thought they canceled that.
I think it was put off a year.
Yeah, they, I believe, the good news is I think they put it off.
Yeah.
But it's still gonna happen, right?
I know the town engineer was working on an alternate routes plan.
Okay.
I don't know who all is involved in that, but I know he was doing some work on it. It's, obviously it's gonna be very, very challenging.
I'll ask this again next time.
Well,
Yeah, they were talking routing it through finding the avenues.
Okay, so I'd like to move away from traffic safety. And Michael, if you could tell us, what's the task force worked on? Give me some bullet points, other things. You said infrastructure, what else? If anything.
Yeah, so.
Well, let's just give me a list
Yeah,
of
so
what you guys have worked on.
That's what I'm gonna do. We looked at roads of concern, looked at constituent issues, collection of data and information, crash data. We looked at land use and zoning considerations to sort of decipher the relationship between the uptick in traffic and development. We looked at technologies. We mentioned some of them today. We looked at some of the sort of recommendations from the state and some, expert traffic and safety organizations. And one of the other things that we looked at was old plans that have sort of collected dust from years past that evaluated various traffic-related issues in the town. And that's why I really wanted to make sure Tom was on this task force, because Tom really is aware of a lot of the old studies that have been.
Old.
No. He's aware of a lot of the studies that have been done in the past that have been simply just collecting dust. And one of the things that I heard from people when I talked to them was like, oh, you're going to do a whole new study. That's all they do is studies. And I'm like, well, you're right, I guess. And coming into the town, I realized that we actually have a bunch of them. We not only have a bunch of them, but we also have recommendations that state DOT and the county have made to say, hey, we can do this, this, and this, but the town just didn't pursue them. So, we really wanted to actually take a nice extensive view into what some of these considerations were, and one that directly affects Hampton Bays has to do with a traffic roundabout at Route 24 and County Road 80.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And so I also have copies for people if you want it. This was actually looked at in 2017, and it just kind of sat there. I want to be clear too, it's not just a roundabout that is involved in this. The state, at the recommendation of the town and the county, did assess this. And they said that based on their review, several short-term options and 2 intersection improvement alternatives may improve safety in the subject area. A long-term option to improve traffic flow and safety, the county may consider cross-access between the parking lots on the north side of County Road 80 and adding a connector road to Lamplighters Circle. And constructing, this is the other one, constructing a roundabout that would allow vehicle access to the Hampton atrium from New York State Route 24 and may improve overall efficiency at this location. And I just want to make mention that this is important, that for us to move ahead on this doesn't mean we embark on a project. I just want to be clear about that. They've done a preliminary evaluation here, and they've said that there could be some potential improvements if we were to do something like this. However, for us to get to the next step, the state DOT, which is primarily the one who does the work, would have to evaluate this much more specifically and engage as well in a community forum setting. like this. The state would present on what their findings are, and there would be some back and forth. And then we would determine if we would want to move forward from there. However, we never took that step. And I'd like to defer actually to Tom, who understands how these projects get funded, who would be able to explain most specifically how this process actually works.
Okay. Well, hold on, before you do that, why don't you tell, so where are we with this now? There, we have,
Nowhere.
We have a
We're nowhere.
letter in a file.
Right.
From 2017.
Right.
It's been pulled out, dusted off.
Yeah,
you all
we dusted
read
it off.
And so now what?
Well, so listen, I got elected, and I mean, I'd like to try to do something, right? I mean, I'd like to try to do some work to try to improve, traffic in the town.
So what's the next step?
So the next step is to try to send the state a supporting resolution saying we'd like to explore this. Can you go to the next step and do a more fuller study and an evaluation and come back to the community and tell us what we got to do? That's the next step.
So you need a resolution from the town board.
Correct. But
Okay.
but my thing is this: I don't like doing anything without seeing you all first. I want to make sure the community is aware before I go and do anything with the town board. I want to make sure the community is aware of that. I mean, I think that's an important thing. But I do want to emphasize that this is important. This is important. The traffic issues are only getting worse. I think that roundabouts have been scientifically proven to enhance congestion, to reverse the implications of congestion. And it's been determined by some of the engineers in this, and I think Tom will elaborate further, that this will improve safety. And this intersection in particular is actually a safety issue. Route 24 and County Road 80, where
By the Hampton Diner.
Flanders
By the
Road.
Hampton Bays Diner.
By the diner.
Yeah. The defunct
Okay,
diner.
I think if you checked on the community, we had discussions about this a while back in the Civic, and it was very mixed. People that understand traffic know it's a good thing. I was at the Civic meeting Monday, and one lady got up and said, "We can't put a circle there. I don't know how to drive in a circle." That's not a reason not to do something that's good for everyone.
You know how you drive in a circle? You just take your hands off the wheels.
Right.
I just want to say.
Just push with one foot, not two.
I just want to say. I think that people sometimes are afraid of bigger changes that could really change the way things look, and I get that, and I think that that's why it's important that we have the conversation to try to understand what those concerns are, and that's why I think this process in particular is really important, because the state, once they do this and evaluate, their next step is to have community sessions. That's part of. Is that
Right.
part of the?
That's a very big part of the process would be public involvement.
Yeah, all joking aside, people who do have challenges going through a traffic circle, and there are many people who do, we have to be sensitive to that, and we have to take that into consideration, and we have to listen to their feedback with regard to what makes it difficult for them, and let them, possibly allow us to modify our plans.
Right, and there's, education is, there are a lot of people that don't know how to drive in a roundabout. If you go on the DOT website, there's a video that shows you, how you drive it. But, so there's a lot of groundwork that would have to be done, to teach people. But as Michael said, and they are shown to be safer, they are shown to improve traffic flow. I can tell you with my, days, the traffic safety director.
Places that they can make right turns into the road, go out of their way.
If we could,
It's part of the Hamlet study.
if we could quiet down a little bit, it's hard to hear up front.
It is.
Tom, speak into the microphone, please.
I think it's in the Hamlet study. I know, Helen, we talked about this off and on at our Town Transportation Commission. So it's been around for a long time, as Michael said, but, we've never asked the state to look any further than, just this little concept drawing that they did.
And I would just add to this too, I think we would also have to ask the county to ask the state. We'd have to do the supporting resolution, but this one's unique because like we're looking at one in Watermill as an example. We can make the request directly to the state, but because this is involving County Road 80, we have to ask the county. We have to tell the county we support it, and from there, then that goes to state there. So there's a two-pronged process here.
And that supporting resolution would have a public hearing
I would imagine.
with a public. Okay, it's telling us we're out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, it goes along with the issue of whether to have a roundabout or not. And actually, Tom, when you were in office, I was in your office discussing this very issue, is that there's a huge safety problem going on with the atrium.
Yeah.
There's accidents all the time in front of the atrium, because of people making left, if you're going, I guess, east, making lefts into it. And that has to be addressed no matter what you decide about the roundabout.
Well, that would be.
That's a part of this whole entire evaluation.
You're right, the westbound cars that just continue up Flanders Road, and the cars that try to make the left into the atrium. This was
And
one
making
of the
the
higher.
left out of the atrium. Out of the atrium.
And out of the,
Take your life in your hands.
The same problem there is, daycare center, they're right next to each other.
Yes.
It's just the same
Right.
thing, people were trying, what is it, takes a village, I think here.
Has
I
it
have a
ever
question
been
right here.
discussed to put just a right only sign at the atrium?
You can do regulations, and that's one of the options that the
It's there.
DOT talks about. But I think we all know, and I know certainly, and Michael's on anything knows, some people obey regulations, some people don't. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So, a posted sign is nice, but it's not generally always effective. This is would be an infrastructure improvement.
Structural.
A structural improvement, one of the things, and I don't wanna spend too much time on it, but also to improve safety, reduce crashes, control speeding, is to change your infrastructure a little bit, change your roadway designs.
And also, putting a right only, in the atrium that leads you out onto Montauk Highway would require all traffic out of the atrium. And I'm sensitive to it because that's where my law office is. It would require me to get onto 27, to go all the way out to the other side of Hampton Bays in order to get back into Hampton Bays. So it's,
Right, there are issues,
unrealistic.
right.
Do you have a question?
I have a question about the resolution that the board would need to follow up on this, and I think it's a great idea to look at old thinking, maybe good thinking, but in 2017, the locations that you were talking about have had dramatic development and change. And now we have the upcoming diner chain. And so the way in which we try to foresee and include what is currently going on, because when you say a supporting resolution, it doesn't necessarily convey that you're going to adapt new information. And roadway design is the single issue that the activism community, Families for Safe Streets and Transportation Alternatives leads that effort. And making it not just the driver's responsibility, but that sensible road design to accommodate new development in particular is, something that I would encourage.
It's an excellent question, and it's a pertinent question to this. And I believe, based on some of our work and Tom's work with the state, they would look at recent planning development within the vicinity. Is that correct?
Right, and in fact, the diner is going away, we all know that, the medical building is coming in. At the planning board level, we've had discussions about the possibility that this might be evaluated, this roundabout. They've had discussions, the developer has had discussions with the state about the possibility that this might be developed. So, we're trying to make sure that there's no surprise, like you're saying, that they know what the current situation is. The developer knows what the current situation is, the state knows what the current situation, and in a couple of years, there's gonna be a medical building there. And they both seem to be able to accommodate.
And one of the things that I would ensure is in the resolution is explicit language that says that we support this study and evaluation contingent on, and listing some of those really important matters that are integral to making that decision and determination.
Okay, I have a question over here.
Yes, in regards to the atrium, if you made it a one-way street and you had the circle involved, that would only be a one-way in. Or, in other words, you wouldn't be able to turn into that. You'd go around the circle, continue back on 24, and make a right into the atrium. But you couldn't make a left in from Montauk Highway.
With the proposed
Make a
roundabout
one-way
design?
in only, but not from that
The
street.
proposed roundabout design, you wouldn't be able to make that eastbound
Left.
left into the atrium.
Right,
It-
okay, so the
physically
roundabout
would
would
be
solve
impossible.
that, because you're not allowed to do a U-turn at the end
Right.
to not use that portion of it. But does it solve the problem with turning left out of it? I mean, the gas station entrance is, what, 20 feet away? But they don't have any problems, but the atrium people have a problem. Is it because there's so much more traffic at the atrium entrance than there is at the gas station?
Well,
Or is it most people coming out from the gas station go to the further east entrance to go out, knowing that it's harder at the further west entrance?
when the gas station came before the planning board with an application to change their, I think they wanted to put a convenience store, I don't remember, it was a couple years ago. I don't remember the details, but one of the requirements that we were gonna put on them was that lefts out were gonna be banned. That was one of the requirements the planning board was gonna put forward. From a planning board perspective, you can't make a property change their ins or outs or lefts or rights until they come before you to do something to their building.
Right,
So,
I mean,
for
to be
example, we
honest,
can't tell the atrium, you've gotta make this one way now. No,
Right,
We
but-
don't have the authority to do that.
but it's a corner and a hill, and those combinations make it completely wrong. You know, so that's,
And these are the
they have
kind
to
of
change it.
comments,
They really have to change it.
you know,
There's an accident every week. I mean,
Right.
it's ridiculous.
This was one of the, when I was with the town, and I used to look at crash data, this stretch from Springville to here was one of the high, you know, foot for foot, it was probably, you know, one of the highest accident locations in the town.
Yeah.
Hopefully a redesigned roundabout or, you know, some other design, and the, you know, the DOT may come back and say, no, we have something different, we have no idea.
I mean, you could put up a barrier, you know, a divider that wouldn't let people make that.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, I have a
There's
question
lot-
over here.
But those are points, I just wanna say, these are the kind of points that when, if we get the DOT, we say, hey, explore this further, they're gonna come out, they're gonna talk to everybody in the community, they're gonna talk to emergency services, they're gonna talk to the school district, they're gonna, you know, they're gonna do what we do, only 10 times longer and
Right.
deeper.
Okay, I have a question over here.
Thank you.
I'm in the process of getting permits for my house, and I found out through the Department of Highways that your apron has to be started 4 feet off the road, right? And I asked her why, and the lady said because we're getting sued by companies, or by people for damaging the apron from the snowplows. And I thought about it, my property starts 10 feet in from the road line. How can a person sue the town for something that they built and it's not even on their property? Why doesn't the judge just say, no, you can't sue, fix it? Like, they changed the law, you know, to have 4 feet of blacktop, and at some places, to me, it looks ridiculous. But how can they sue if it's not even on their property?
Well,
I'm not,
anybody can sue anybody in this town.
Yeah, it just doesn't
Or
make
in this-
sense.
In this
If
country,
you just-
you may not win, but anybody can sue anybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Just one comment. If you come out of the atrium and you wanna go east, and you had a roundabout, you just go to the roundabout and go around the circle and go east. It would avoid all the accidents.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, hold on. So it's now almost 8:50. We're gonna wrap this up. Michael, did you have one last thing
Yeah,
to tell us?
I just have two things actually, if that's okay.
You got two.
Very quickly. Wow, we run a tight ship. I wanted to just share with you that the highway department, there's some updates, and I just wanted to, since many of you are here, to get updates as well. Lighthouse Road is a CPF. There's a CPF water quality project. They're waiting for approvals on that from the agencies. There's a Bay Drive bulkhead water quality project that went out to bid. Bay Avenue, there is, they're waiting for a DEC response. They're very close to going out to bid there. There's a sidewalk project they're trying to complete on Wakeman Road from the school to Bay Avenue. That's been a long time coming. So that's perspective for 2025. And also Springville Road to Bay Avenue as well, sidewalks. So I just wanted to give that update to all of you. Please round of applause too. I really want to say a round of applause in particular to Charlie McCardle and Mark Brager for really taking this initiative, working with us, and we're happy to see these things go forward. And I also just want to say too that community really makes the best partnership in government, and I'm just proud to be with all of you today, and really appreciate the back and forth. It was very informative because we get insight from you too. So
thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody for coming. I have copies of this New York State Department of Transportation communication. There's only a few, so I'm going to leave them up here if anybody wants them. It's first come, first serve. I will. You know what? I will email it to everyone on our list. So if you're not on our email list, make sure you sign up at the front. And please join us next month. And have a good night. Thank you so much.